What is up, my friends? Welcome to Flippin' Bats, where the stage is set, the Fall Classic is lined up, and the World Series is about to begin. And we're going to go team by team previewing the World Series, where I think certain edges are. Basically, any and everything you need to know about the World Series is going to be talked about right here. For the first time in 3 decades, the Toronto Blue Jays are heading back to the World Series, where their opponent is the Los Angeles Dodgers, who are trying to win back-to-back World Series. The first back-to-back champion since 1998, 99, and 2000 when the Yankees did it. There has not been a back-to-back champion since the New York Yankees in 2000. It's the third World Series in Toronto ever, but the first since the Jays won back-to-back championships in 1992 and 1993. And it all starts Friday in Toronto. The Toronto Blue Jays are the higher seed, or they had the better record during the regular season, so they will be the home team and get games 1, 2 at home, 3, 4, and 5 will be on the road in Los Angeles, and 6 and 7, if necessary, back in Toronto. Game 1 Friday. It'll be the 7th World Series game ever played outside of U.S. borders. All of those being with the Toronto Blue Jays. The Expos never actually made it to the World Series. I'm pumped about this series. This is a high-powered offense in the Toronto Blue Jays against the Los Angeles Dodgers' dominant pitching. Obviously, the Dodgers do have a high-powered offense as well with the MVPs at the top of that. But the Blue Jays' first World Series since 1993. They advanced to the Fall Classic via Game 7 of the ALCS, where the Los Angeles Dodgers advanced by sweeping the number 1 seed in the NLCS. So there you have it. Our matchup is set. And when that is specifically the case, one team sweeps, the other gets there via a Game 7. That has happened 4 times in Major League Baseball history. And in all 4 instances, the team that went 7 games has gone on to win the World Series. So that's something to keep an eye out there. Why? Well, you don't have a week plus off. Historically, having a week or more off is bad news for the team advancing to the World Series, and that is the case for the Dodgers. Now, has any team been as good as the Dodgers that it happened to? Probably not. 2 of those 4 were Detroit Tigers teams that my brother was on. 2006 when they lost to the Cardinals, and 2012 when they lost to the Giants. Nobody had Shohei Ohtani. Nobody was as talented as the Dodgers. But the point stands. Offense matters, and when an offense is rolling, you do not want off days. So the Blue Jays, their offense is rolling. They all have played more recently. I've told this story before, but I was a hitter professionally, and I could tell, especially when I was going well, I did not want an off day. I could tell when I had an off day, your brain, your mind that is wired to face pitching and see 100 miles an hour, it's just a tick different. The game just speeds up on you a tick. So you don't want those off days. And when you're looking at a week off, not necessarily good news. So in all 4 instances, the team that swept the round before the World Series has gone on to lose if they face a team that went 7 games. Let's talk about these teams. We're going to talk about the Dodgers. We're going to talk about the Blue Jays. And then we're going to break down this series, certain situation by situation. Pitching, starting pitching, bullpen, offense, defense, manager, all the way through my prediction of this series. We're going to start with the Dodgers. The Dodgers are led by their dominant starting pitching. They swept the NLCS. They allowed just a 118 batting average against as a team. Lowest ever in a postseason series of at least 3 games. Their combined starter ERA was 0.63 across 28 2/3 innings pitched. Think about that. The worst start they got, this really puts it into perspective. The worst start the Dodgers had in the NLCS was, I guess, Tyler Glasnow, who went 5 2/3 innings, gave up 1 run, and struck out 8 guys. I mean, look, Shohei went 6, struck out 10, didn't give up a run. Yamamoto, complete game, gave up 1 run, home run on the first batter of the game, and then went complete game from there. Blake Snell, what absolutely filthy and dominant. 8 innings. So I think Glasnow's 5 2/3 with 8 punch-outs and 1 run was the worst start of the NLCS. So the starting pitching is absolutely where this team is built and made right now for October. You always figure out your team in October, right? And the Dodgers know what they have. The offense might not even necessarily be rolling on all cylinders, but their starting pitching is. What they did in the NLCS, the starting pitchers, was historic. The ALCS in 1990 is the last time a series began with 4 games and a team allowing 0 or 1 run. That's what the Dodgers did every game of the NLCS. Look, this Dodgers team, we know Mookie, Freddie, Shohei at the top of the lineup. Shohei Ohtani coming off of the greatest postseason performance of all time. I put together my top 5 because everybody was saying, greatest performance ever. I was saying that as well, but I did some research to see if that was true. Shohei Ohtani coming off the greatest postseason performance of all time. This team is just relentless. We've seen it all postseason, whether it be on the road in Philadelphia, on the road in Milwaukee. This team is thriving on the road right now, and that's what makes them so scary. They're better than any team I've ever seen. In fact, it rivals those, from 2017 to 2023 Houston Astros that would go on the road. They would thrive on the road as a villain, and the crowd would get taken out of it immediately. That's what this Dodgers team is doing. They're better than any team I've seen going on the road and taking the crowd out of it. They score early, and if that doesn't happen, they're shutdown innings on the mound. To go out and score and then go out and put up a 0. They're never letting the opposition lead too long. I think of game 2 of the NLCS when Jackson Chourio hits that, the crowd gets taken out of it in game 1. Game 2 starts, it's like, okay, if we want to win this series, we need to win this game. And then in game 2, Jackson Chourio, leadoff home run. Brewers are winning 1-0. And then in the top of the second inning, Teoscar Hernandez hits a homer. So, that feeling that you got of oh my God, we have a chance. The Dodgers just take it right away from you. And then from there, Yamamoto, not a chance. Not a chance. Every inning, just shutting the door down. They just don't give you life. They don't let you breathe. They don't let the crowd get into it. There's such a difference in the crowd when a team is up 1 run. Right? Or in a tie ball game. Or when you're down 1 run and a leadoff batter gets on base. But they're not doing that. They're either up a run or they're shutting you down. They're not even letting you get on base. And they're really taking crowds out of it. So I'm going to be very interested. If the starting pitchers keep doing what they've been doing, this Blue Jays crowd that is seemingly fantastic, I'm excited to get up there and see it. I'm leaving in a couple hours from when I'm recording, actually. But I'm excited to get up there, but this Blue Jays crowd has been awesome, and we'll see if they can stay in it and if the Blue Jays can stay on top of the Dodgers and not fall behind so that the crowd gets taken out of it. And then the Dodgers have Shohei Ohtani. He's everything. He's everything to this team. He's a dominant starting pitcher, and he's their best offensive player. He's coming off the greatest postseason performance of all time. I ran through the list the other day on the show, but I'll quickly do it here. My number 5 is Reggie Jackson in 1977, 3 homers in World Series Game 6. My number 4 was Bob Gibson's World Series Game 7 in 1967. He threw a complete game in Game 7 of the World Series, and it was his 3rd complete game of the World Series. He threw 3 times, Game 1, Game 4, and Game 7, and he threw a complete game in every single one. And in that Game 7, he punched out 10 guys and hit a homer as well. That's number 4. Jack Morris in 1991 World Series Game 7 threw 10 shutout innings. And then number 2, 1956 Don Larson's perfect game against a dominant, loaded Dodgers offense. And then number 1, Shohei Ohtani last week in NLCS Game 4. 3 for 3, 3 home runs, 6 innings pitched, 10 strikeouts, 0 runs. Look, I don't care if you hit 3 home runs in Little League. It is not easy to hit 3 home runs in a game. Little League, high school, college, pros, it doesn't matter. I hit 3 home runs in a game one time in college. and it's the game of my life. It ain't easy to hit 3 home runs. And he was hitting them out of Dodger Stadium. That's how crazy it was. So Shohei Ohtani coming off the greatest postseason performance of all time, breaking so much history in the process. He broke 10 different things. But the big one for me that really puts it all into perspective, and I went through this last week, or the other day, so I'm not going to do it all again. But he is the only player in MLB history to have at least 3 home runs and at least 10 strikeouts as a pitcher in an entire postseason career. In an entire career, at least 3 home runs offensively and at least 10 strikeouts pitching-wise. And he did it all in one game. Think about that. So the Dodgers are built on their starting pitching, and they're built on those MVPs in the lineup, led by Shohei Ohtani. On the other side of things is the Toronto Blue Jays. Everything you need to know about the Toronto Blue Jays. This is a throwback offense that has offensive studs, but even more specifically, it's all of the traits that you want your lineup to have. They don't strike out a lot. They put the ball in play. They can hit for power. They have speed on the bases. This is a really good offense. And I wouldn't say it's a traditional 2025 Major League Baseball offense. It's a bit of a throwback. You have your studs. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is their stud. George Springer is a stud. But after those guys, you start getting into guys that just put the ball in play and have really good at-bats and really good approaches. And maybe they're not going to hit you 300 in a season with 30 homers. But what they're doing in the postseason, Dalton Varsho, Ernie Clements been fantastic. They just play the game the right way offensively. They have a great approach at the plate. And I think this leads to a fascinating clash of contrasting styles with the Dodgers and their dominant starting pitching that wants to strike you out, and then the Blue Jays offense that doesn't strike out much and that can do it all. They can do it many different ways offensively. So you'll see George Springer leading off for this Toronto Blue Jays team. George Springer coming off a Game 7 home run that was the biggest home run in Blue Jays history since Joe Carter's walk-off home run in Game 6 of 1993. If you've been hearing that, George Springer, biggest home run since Joe Carter. If you don't know the Joe Carter home run, it came in Game 6 of the World Series, and it was a walk-off home run. Game 6 ended the World Series. So Joe Carter hit a walk-off home run to end the World Series in 1993 and win the Toronto Blue Jays their last World Series title. George Springer's was in Game 7. It wasn't a walk-off. It was to get to the World Series. So it's the biggest home run since Joe Carter. It was also his 23rd postseason homer, officially passing Bernie Williams for the 4th most postseason home runs in history. George Springer will most likely be DHing. Now, there's a couple different caveats with this Blue Jays lineup that I'm going to get into with a certain player coming back. But George Springer is going to be leading off, and I think DHing most likely. And I also wanted to mention a quick George Springer story. I know George Springer from his years with the Astros when he was in Houston. And George Springer is a really, really good guy. And the story that I wanted to share is that George Springer has a stutter. So every time I watch him give an interview, I'm amazed by the courage that it takes. I'm amazed by how strong he is. I'm amazed by how far he's come. George Springer grew up stuttering and being bullied for that, which led to him not wanting to speak, which led to him not wanting to communicate. And even when he got to pro ball, his hesitancy to want to do interviews was clearly apparent. And now over time, he's built up his confidence, and we now see him speaking on the biggest stage and the brightest lights on the national broadcast. And you probably don't even notice. You probably have never heard. And what has come from this now is George Springer is this advocate for people of all ages that have a stutter. And proof for kids and adults of all ages that have a stutter that things can get better, and you can build your confidence and feel comfortable in your own skin communicating that. And he, throughout his career, has really helped so many people. And a quote of his that I think is extremely powerful is he said, "I hope I can be proof that things do get easier. You can do what you want to do. You can say what you want to say. You can be who you want to be." And now George Springer is on the game's biggest stage, the World Series. He'll be speaking to the media, something that he wasn't comfortable doing at one time, and continuing to help and prove to people of all ages with a stutter that it is possible to build your confidence over time and feel comfortable speaking. And I just think George Springer is a great guy for many, many, many different reasons. That's just one of them. So I'm pumped for George Springer. Biggest home run for the Toronto Blue Jays since Joe Carter. And now he's going back to another World Series where he's going to keep trying to climb the list of the most home runs in postseason history. He's fourth all time with 23, passing Bernie Williams. Absolutely incredible. Another guy for the Toronto Blue Jays is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. You may know the name Vladimir Guerrero if you're a big baseball fan or used to be a big baseball fan and now you're tuning back in for the World Series or whatever it may be. I don't pretend or think that everyone listening to this show is a diehard baseball fan. I think that's the beauty of this. Like, I can get in the weeds if you want me to. But I'm also just going to tell you the nuts and bolts of what you need to know. Vladimir Guerrero Sr. is a Hall of Fame baseball player. He also played in Canada, which makes this pretty cool. And now you have Vladimir Guerrero Jr., his son, in the World Series for the first time. And he has been fantastic. He is their superstar. 6 months after signing the third largest contract in Major League Baseball history, he has been an absolute superstar for the Toronto Blue Jays in October. He's slashing .442 with a .930 slugging percentage. He's got an OPS over 1,300, over 1,400. He's got 3 strikeouts the entire month of October compared to 6 home runs. 6 home runs, 3 strikeouts. He's tied the Blue Jays franchise record for most home runs in a postseason career. And he's doing it all this postseason. He had a 10-game span in October. He's these are the only players in MLB history with a 10-game span in a single postseason of hitting at least .440 batting average and 6+ homers. 2004, Carlos Beltran, and 2025, Vladdy Jr. 6 home runs, 3 strikeouts at the plate, and he is absolutely rolling offensively. And if he keeps it rolling, this is going to be big for the Los Angeles Dodgers. I think they're going to pitch around him a good bit. You can't let him hurt you right now. With how good he's rolling, I think they pitch around him a good bit. So what do the guys after him do? The Dalton Varshos, the Ernie Clements, the Nathan Lucas. We'll see what they're able to do. But Vladdy Jr. is the star amongst stars on this team, the Toronto Blue Jays. And then another guy I want to mention is Trey Savage. He's not their number 1 starter. He's their number 2 starter. But what's interesting about him is he had 3 major league starts in his entire career before this postseason. And the Blue Jays aren't here without him. So shout out to their manager, John Schneider, for just thinking, okay, this kid that's thrown 3 times in the big leagues is going to be our guy. And he went out and he dominated the New York Yankees. He dominated in his final start against the Seattle Mariners. And they've continued to believe in him. And the Toronto Blue Jays aren't here without him. So he's a young guy. He's done fantastic. He throws hard. His splitter is one of the best pitches in baseball already. He's fantastic. So the Blue Jays starters haven't been announced yet, but I do imagine he's going to go game 2 and Kevin Gausman is going to go game 1. So that's your Toronto Blue Jays. Toronto Blue Jays against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Let's preview this now. We're going to go mano a mano, starting pitching, bullpen, offense, defense, manager, all the way up to who I think wins this series and kind of who has a bigger advantage in certain areas. So let's start with the starting pitching. The starting pitching to me is advantage Los Angeles Dodgers. This feels pretty easy. Now, the Toronto Blue Jays have been no slouch. I think they have a 3.33 team ERA in the postseason, or at least their starters. But the Dodgers are historically good. Maybe the best postseason rotation of all time. I have John Smoltz on the show every single week, and I even asked him, 2025 Dodgers playoff rotation or the 90s Braves with Smoltz, Glavine, Maddox, and Avery? And he said, if we're talking just one postseason run and everyone's healthy, I don't think it's a question. I think it's the Los Angeles Dodgers. And there's 3 Hall of Famers in that Braves rotation, so that should tell you something. Starting pitching, I'm rolling with the Dodgers. You have Blake Snell and Yamamoto, who are going in games 1 and 2 officially, and then there's Ohtani and Glasnow. On the Blue Jays side of things, it's going to be Kevin Gausman and Trey Savage. And then what do you do from there? Max Scherzer was actually good in the NLCS. Max Scherzer, Chris Bassett. Do you get back to somebody on short rest? We'll see. But the top 2 guys are good. One is very unproven, but we'll see how he continues to do in the World Series. But the Blue Jays starters are no slouches, but definitely advantage Dodgers here. In the bullpen, neither bullpen is good. Neither bullpen is good. I'm going to go with the Dodgers solely because Roki Sasaki has stepped up and become a huge X factor for the Dodgers out of the bullpen. And he's been great back there. So I'm going to go with Roki Sasaki and the Dodgers bullpen as the better bullpen. Jeff Hoffman in the back end of the Blue Jays bullpen is scary to me. And they just have a lot of question marks, as do the Dodgers. So both teams' weaknesses are the bullpen. I'll give a slight edge to the Dodgers because they've figured it out with Roki Sasaki for the 9th inning. Offensively, I struggle to not go with the Dodgers here. I love it. If we were to break it down a little further and go approach at the plate and putting the ball in play, I go Blue Jays. But offense overall, 1 through 9 in the lineup, I can't not go with the Los Angeles Dodgers, who lead off with the greatest player of all time in Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and then even the depth in the lineup, Teoscar Hernandez, Will Smith. You have Andy Pages down in the 9 hole who can take you deep any given at bat. Max Muncy. They've just got guys 1 through 9. I do like the Blue Jays offense, but the Dodgers offense to me has the advantage. Approach, I would give offensive approach to the Blue Jays, but we're not breaking it down that deep. Defense, I'm going to go with the Toronto Blue Jays. Per Fangraphs, the Toronto Blue Jays had the best defensive rating of any team in baseball. Defensive runs saved as a team goes to the Toronto Blue Jays. Dodgers are no slouch. Mookie Betts is fantastic. I will keep shouting to the rooftop how impressive it is that Mookie Betts has gone from the outfield to the infield to shortstop last year, being very average, and this year leading all of Major League Baseball shortstops in defensive run saves. It's absolutely insane. Andy Pages in center field has maybe the best arm of any outfielder in baseball. They do play good defense. The Dodgers play good defense, but I think the Blue Jays, there's a good argument that they're the best defensive team in baseball. Dalton Varsho in center field, fantastic defensively. Andres Jimenez in the infield, fantastic. Vladdy has been very good over at first base defensively. He's a Gold Glove winner in his own right. So I'm going to give the edge here to the Toronto Blue Jays defensively. Manager, Dave Roberts versus John Schneider. I like both of these guys. And if this matchup was 2 years ago, if it was, I'm speaking specifically about Dave Roberts, but a couple years ago, I might not have picked Dave Roberts as the advantage here. But I am going to go with the managerial advantage with Dave Roberts. I think he has learned so much over the last couple of years. I think he has been here. I think he has done that. I don't think John Schneider has. I think there's going to be a little bit more of a panic button pushed from John Schneider's perspective, and he's at a bit of a disadvantage because his starters aren't going to go as deep into the games. He doesn't have the dominant starters that the Los Angeles Dodgers do. Whereas we've seen Dave Roberts sit back this postseason in the 7th inning in an intense ball game, and he's just sitting there in the dugout, like on the dugout bench. You don't see managers on the dugout bench. Dave Roberts has learned so much over the last couple of years. And I think he's come a long, long way as manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers. I like what he's done. 2024, the way he managed that bullpen was spectacular. 2025, he had to do things completely opposite and just trust and rely on his starting pitching. And he has done just that. Dave Roberts, to me, has the advantage over John Schneider. So I'm going to go managerial-wise. I'm going to pick the Dodgers. So starting pitching Dodgers, bullpen Dodgers, offense Dodgers, defense Blue Jays, manager Dodgers. I do want to reiterate something here. When it came to the New York Yankees series, I sat here and said, like a big Dumbo, I don't see where the Blue Jays have an advantage over the Yankees. It's not starting pitching. It's not bullpen. It's not offense. And I was dead wrong about that series. Couldn't have been more wrong about that series. So just because I think the Dodgers have the advantage in many categories does not mean that they are going to win this series. So we will discuss my series prediction here in a minute. We're going to go through each team's strength and weakness and how they win the series and their X factor. The Blue Jays' strength is their offense and their approach. The offense is hot. It is really scary going up against a hot offense. Just ask the Seattle Mariners, who have great pitching. Great pitching went up against a hot offense, and the great pitching lost. Now, the great pitching wasn't exactly great. They struggled at times. They didn't make great managerial moves at times, and I think that ended up costing them. But the Blue Jays' strength is their offense and their approach at the plate, which is why I think they match up really well against the Dodgers. The Dodgers try and strike you out a lot, and they dominate you with starting pitching. If the Blue Jays... Well, I don't want to say it. My prediction, my Blue Jays will win if, is in a second. The Blue Jays' weakness is their bullpen. I worry here. They do not have a lot of lefties to match up. That's where we've seen the Dodgers struggle. With the Phillies and those starters and Christopher Sanchez and Ranger Suarez and Jesus Luzardo, the Phillies really figured out how to dominate Shohei Ohtani and keep him at bay. All of the Blue Jays starters are right-handed, and they don't have many lefties to turn to. And their bullpen's not necessarily great. Louis Varland's going to be a huge key for them in the back end of the bullpen, and their closer, Jeff Hoffman, both right-handed. But their weakness is their bullpen. The Blue Jays will win the World Series if they get to the bullpen before the seventh inning more often than not. This is the key to beating the Dodgers. Get more outs from the bad bullpen. Do not let this dominant rotation go Yamamoto, Snell, Ohtani, Glasnow, handing the ball off to one of their lefties in Vesia or Banda for a couple of outs to then hand it to Roki Sasaki. It will not work if you let them do that. But if you make them get more outs, where there's, say, 6 to 8 outs, 6 to 9 outs you have to get before you can hand it to Roki Sasaki, then the Dodgers are going to be in trouble. Their bullpen is not good. Roki Sasaki is their savior this postseason. So the Blue Jays will win the World Series if more often than not they get to the bullpen before the 7th inning. So what does that mean? That means 5 2/3 or less from the starters. If you let every starter go 6, and then into the 7th, you're starting, well, I mean, that's still 9 outs, but you just can't let the starters pitch into the 7th inning. You have to get them out before then. And the Blue Jays offense is set up to do that. They have a good approach. They put pitches in you. They'll take their walks. They'll advance runners. They do things the right way offensively, and I like their approach against this Dodgers team. It's strength on strength here in this World Series. The Blue Jays X Factor. This is an exciting one. It's Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette has said he is going to be back for the World Series. He has been out for months. He led the league in hits for the longest time, even with missing the last big chunk of the season. He is a star for this Blue Jays team when healthy. So the X factor is Bo Bichette, who has said he will be ready for the World Series. He thought it looked like he was going to be ready for the ALCS. He had a little bit of not a setback per se from what we're hearing, but he was getting ready to prepare for the ALCS and he just wasn't ready. So now all of a sudden, a week and a half later, he's saying he'll be ready. This is one of their studs. Vladdy Jr., Bo Bichette, and George Springer are their studs. How do the Blue Jays use Bo Bichette is the X factor of this series. Do you start him? Do you bring him in off the bench, off some of those lefties that the Dodgers are going to turn to in the bullpen? Look, I don't know where he's at health-wise, right? Here's my thoughts on this situation. I don't know where Bo is at health-wise. I don't know where he's going to be able to be at defensively. And look, I love the whole concept and narrative of don't mess with mojo. So you could sit here and say, don't mess with the mojo. It's working what they're doing in the infield with Andres Jimenez and Ernie Clement, and don't mess with that. But this is different. We're talking about a star. This can't just be don't mess with the mojo. This is one of your stars. This is a stud. He's not, but say he's 100% and ready to rock but hasn't played this postseason, I don't care about the mojo. You play your star. You play your stud. But to me, it all depends on where he's at health-wise, and I don't know that answer. But this is going to be a huge factor in the series. Does he start in Game 1 of the World Series? I don't think he's anywhere close to 100% health-wise. So what my gut says should happen is use him as this great tool off the bench against some of those lefties they're going to bring in, Vesia and Banda. I know Blake Snell's starting in Game 1. I don't think he's going to start Game 1. I don't think that's the play. Just health-wise, I think you use him off the bench. But again, it all depends on where he's at health-wise. But watch as this series evolves. George Springer, their leadoff batter, has been DHing. He's their DH. As this series evolves, if it's looking like we need more offense, not that they're not prioritizing offense, but if it gets to a position where it's Game 3 and you're down 0-2, or if it's Game 6 and your offense has been struggling, I think at that point, look for George Springer to move to the outfield, Bo Bichette to perhaps DH, and then what you're looking at is one of, Addison Barger, Nathan Lucas being removed from the lineup, even though those guys have been good. So Bo Bichette's the X factor here. He's a star. He's average-wise probably the best hitter in the American League, just from a pure average perspective, but he's not healthy. How is he used in this series? How does his health evolve? Does he start? Is he used as a tool off of the bench? Does that evolve as the series go? Is all of the questions. But if he's good and ready to rock, this is not just keep the mojo going. This is a star, and he's got to be in there. But I don't know if he is. But that's the Blue Jays X factor. So that's from the Blue Jays perspective. Let's go on to the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Dodgers' strength is their starting rotation. They obviously have 3 MVPs in their lineup, but to me, the Dodgers' big strength is that starting rotation that was historically good in the NLCS. Yamamoto, Snell, Ohtani, Glasnow, Dodgers' strength. Dodgers' weakness is the bullpen. Roki Sasaki has been the key. I don't know if they're here without Roki Sasaki. I don't think the Dodgers are here without Roki Sasaki. He'd been fantastic, and then in the deciding game against the Phillies that went extra innings, he threw 3 perfect innings. I don't know if the Dodgers are here without Roki Sasaki. I called it before the season ended. He had just come back up from the minor leagues and not being good all year, getting sent down to the minor leagues. He comes back up, and I said, this guy's going to be their playoff X factor. And here we are, and he is. But their weakness is still the bullpen. Trinan has not been locked down back there. Their lefties, Vesia, Banda, you worry about a little bit. But the more outs you have to get from them, the more and more worried you are, because their bullpen's not great. And that's what Dave Roberts knows, and that's why he's been so good this postseason, is letting his starters. These starters are all probably going to go over 100 pitches. If they're going fine, they're all probably going to go over 100 pitches. Bullpen's the weakness. The Dodgers will win this series if the rotation stays as dominant and goes deeper into games. It's plain and simple. If this series is strength against strength, Dodgers starting pitching against Blue Jays offense that has a great approach. They are built to not shy away from this rotation. The Mariners strike out so much, I think they would have struck out 70 times in 7 games or more. This Blue Jays offense is capable of getting to that rotation earlier. The rotation's going to get theirs, right? They're great. But it's capable of having a good approach and getting them out before the 7th inning. If the Dodgers rotation stays as dominant as they were in the NLCS, there's no chance. This series ends in 4 or 5. So we'll see what happens there. Dodgers X Factor, I'm riding with Roki Sasaki. I called it before the playoffs. He's still their playoff X Factor. If he's the guy that can keep shutting down the 9th inning, man, if he keeps pitching like he has been, I think the Dodgers win this series. The Blue Jays are going to have to get a game off of Roki Sasaki. They're going to have to come back and win a game that they're down 1 or 2 in the 9th inning with Roki Sasaki on the mound. And he throws 101 with one of the nastiest splitters you'll ever see. He has a couple different type of splitters, by the way. One's faster, one's slower. He's disgusting. So they're going to have to get a game off of him. Roki Sasaki is the Dodgers X Factor. So that's a little bit of each team's strength and weakness and who their X Factors are. Kind of everything you need to know about each team. The Dodgers have lined up their rotation. They have said they're going to go Snell in Game 1 and Yamamoto in Game 2, as they did in the NLCS, and then they're just going to play it by ear from there. They're going to lock in Snell and Yamamoto, and then we'll see what happens from there. So I'm imagining that the Game 1 pitching matchup is going to be Blake Snell against Kevin Gausman, which is fantastic. That's a great matchup. I love that matchup. Blake Snell could not be any better than he has been this postseason. And Kevin Gausman's a stud for the Toronto Blue Jays. I like that matchup a lot. Game 2, you're going to get Yamamoto and probably Trey Savage, which there's a couple different ways to look at this. Trey Savage is a young rookie. He's 22. He's only thrown 3 official starts in Major League Baseball career. His postseason starts, he's also had, I think, 3. So he's had as many postseason starts as he has career starts. And now he's probably going to start Game 2 of the World Series. Is the moment too big for him? So far, what we've learned is no. But we don't know, right? You're putting a 22-year-old rookie that pitched his first inning of professional baseball this year. You're pitching him in Game 2, most likely, of the World Series. But on the other side of that, the Dodgers have never seen him. That's a benefit to the pitcher. The Dodgers don't know him. The Dodgers haven't seen him. They've never seen the way his pitches move. They've never seen his arm action. That's a benefit Trey Savage. So really fascinating matchup there. Yamamoto versus Savage. Really awesome there. Okay, it's prediction time. My prediction of this series. I love the way the Blue Jays match up with the Dodgers. I do. And the Dodgers are big favorites to win this series. I think they're minus 240 on FanDuel Sportsbook, which means if you you have to bet $240 to win $100. I think the Blue Jays are plus 180, so bet 100 to win $180. But I don't think that's the case. I don't think this series is as lopsided as that. I think this series goes back to Toronto. I think it goes 6 games, and I think in the end, the Los Angeles Dodgers pull out this series. I think the big difference is the starting rotation. I think as it goes deeper, the worry gets bigger for the Toronto Blue Jays. Are you really relying again on a Max Scherzer who's 41 and hadn't pitched until the other day in like a couple weeks? He was really good, but you have to rely on him again on the road probably. And then a Chris Bassett. It's just every game of this World Series, the Dodgers are going to be pitching a superstar ace. Whereas that's not the case for the Toronto Blue Jays. And I think in the end, That's why I love this. I love the Blue Jays' approach against the Dodgers. But that's why in the end, I think just every game having to face a superstar is ultimately going to be too much. And I do think that the Toronto Blue Jays are going to get knocked out after Game 6 of the postseason. So give me the Los Angeles Dodgers to win the World Series in 6 games. That is the Ben Verlander World Series prediction. Another World Series prediction for you is that I will be on my way to Toronto here in just a couple hours after I record. My bags are packed. I'm heading to Toronto. Here's the situation for the World Series. Flippin' Bats is going to be absolutely rolling. I am going to be able to do some shows on the field. I don't yet know how many I will be doing. I don't think they'll be live because of the internet situation, but the plan is to do shows after games and then have them come out shortly after that. So going to do a show, have them recorded, send them to producer Taylor, and we're going to get these bad boys flipped around as soon as possible. Because as I've said from the beginning, spring training, 2025 is the year of Flippin' Bats, and we have been rolling, my friends. So please make sure you're ready, subscribed on YouTube, like this video, subscribe, comment. All that stuff really, really does help. So if you're listening or watching and you're ready to rock for the World Series, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. That does really help. And things are going to get crazy for me starting in like an hour as I'm heading to Toronto, Canada. I don't think I've ever been to Canada. I'm going to Canada for the first time. Things are going to get crazy, but I still want to hop in the comments of the YouTube and continue to talk to you guys throughout this series and on travel days. So please check us out on our YouTube channel, Flippin' Bats Pod there. You can watch everything. You can like, comment, subscribe, but you can listen on YouTube, on podcast platforms as well, Apple, Spotify, wherever. And we are on all social media. Make sure you check that out. At Flippin' Bats Pod on all social media is where you can find everything we do. It's World Series time. I can't believe we've made it. I feel like not all that long ago, we were just talking about the beginning of the year and how excited we were, and here we are, October 22nd. And the World Series is about to begin on Friday. Every game of the World Series starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Whether it's in Toronto or in Los Angeles, every game starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure you're on the lookout for that. And check me out on all socials. I've had so much content roll in these playoffs, and that is going to continue. My trip to Toronto, I've never been there. I'm going to head up in the tower maybe. It's going to be a whole thing. So check it out. I love you all. I appreciate you all. We will be back. I'm talking to John Smoltz on Thursday. So we'll get John Smoltz's preview for the series as well on Thursday into early Friday before everything gets underway. So be on the lookout for that. And then who knows the schedule from there. More and more Flippin' Bats shows coming at you. I appreciate you all. I love you all. Enjoy the World Series. Dodgers in 6. Until next time, my friends, remember, find your bat and flip it. Peace.